Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Dan Shaw, CEO and co-founder of Bridgeline. Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much. I feel like when did we talk first? Like a couple months ago, and you offered the spot on the podcast, and I was like, I gotta get through a product release, and we put it on the books. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, maybe we won't get the product release, and we did, and I'm super happy. So I'm super thrilled to finally be recording this with you, and thanks for the time.
That's amazing. What has been the biggest challenge in the release?
Man, I mean, it's about like you can get things to the one, and what I learned in construction just in general is like you can get things to the 1 yard line. Getting it to the finish line is really the hardest part. So it was really just kind of crossing the T's, dotting the I's, pushing out a usable product for the trade show that we were releasing the product at, and then also knowing in the back of your mind that the product's not done, it's never done, right? So that's kind of it was really just kind of a push to the finish line and pulling out scope, interjecting scope somewhere else, and kind of running kind of with our hair on fire. But that's the way it goes in tech, and especially with the early stage startup. So I love every minute of it.
Yeah, I was about to say it sounds like a real startup scenario. For people who don't know about Dan, can we go back to your early experiences? Like what shaped your interest to get into construction and get into construction tech?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always loved like to work. So I did, I was talking with Gareth, I actually on the pre-construction podcast. He has a similar question. It was just I was always attracted to work. So whether that was like caddying at a very young age or working in a bicycle shop, and I was also very attracted to customer interactions and kind of the more sales aspect of business. So I was lucky enough to find an elevator company actually that was hiring out of the University of Kansas, which is where I went to school, for a sales intake program, and got to go learn all about elevators and ended up becoming a commercial elevator salesman. And I did that for about 10 years selling ground up elevators. So elevators to ground up projects. So anything going up, I'd sell into the general contractor, design with the architect, try to have relationship with ownership groups. So it's really kind of transformative part of my career. And I learned that the built world is not only fascinating, it's incredibly chaotic and an interesting industry. So I really fell in love with it. And tech, I think, is just kind of one of those things that fell off the bone, right?
Do you feel there are any major differences doing like B2B sales versus construction specific sales? What are some nuances?
Yeah, for sure. So like it's just like in construction, I was selling B2B, right? I was an elevator salesperson selling into a commercial construction company, right? By definition, B2B, it is completely different selling elevators to a project that needs elevators than it is selling new tech to a company that doesn't even know that they need it or is just learning about it, right? So then it's completely different. And so when you go into it, and it's like, okay, I was a decent, salesperson in the elevator world, but then you learn quickly, you get humbled very quickly that one, the status quo is really hard to compete against, and people are very comfortable in their processes, and trying to disrupt that, or not trying to disrupt that, like offering a solution that does disrupt that is not as easy as saying, hey, I'm building a new building, it needs a couple elevators or plumbing or whatever, and I need to buy it from somebody, right? So two completely different sales. And yeah, that was like, I think the hardest thing that I had to learn. And I'm obviously still learning every single day, right? I've been doing this for about a year and a half. So yeah, that is definitely apples and oranges in terms of sales cycles.
Any mentor or particular incident that taught you a lot in that journey of working there and the lessons you learned the hard way?
In terms of working at Bridgeline, or just in my past career?
Past career.
Past career, yeah. I mean, one of my mentors, his name's Brad Potter. He's always like the devil's in the detail, especially in construction. And if you lose that mindset, I don't think that you can build tech for construction, because the devil is in the detail, especially when we're selling into estimators, right? They take their jobs incredibly seriously. They're very proud about what they do, and they need to be incredibly detail focused and oriented. That's one of those things that for me, as someone who wants to break things, think about things like from a visionary perspective, it's kind of hard to, I think about the vision, and it's kind of hard to dial back in the details. And that's an incredibly important piece, I think, especially for early stage founders that need to be able to kind of hold on to that thought process. So,
I see. And what was the seed idea that led to Bridgeline? Take us to the early days.
yeah. So I was always obviously in technical sales, right? So general contractors would ask me technical questions about what they were buying, and it would turn into a support ticket to engineering, and then engineering would take a week to get back to me. And then time kills all deals. So if I'm responding a week later, it just kind of felt like momentum would get lost. So I thought that was a really interesting application of AI specifically, or especially modern day AI tools where you can say, okay, we have all this documentation. Every technical question's been asked before for the most part, and we can layer in some modern AI. And by modern AI, I mean like large language models, like think about ChatGPT or uh, Google Gemini, et cetera. And you can have that sit on top of old historical data, technical documents, support tickets, et cetera. And you should be able to kind of query low risk engineering questions relatively quickly and kind of keep your deal flow going. So that was like my first idea that I had to incorporate for like construction technology, right? And got lucky enough to find a really, really great developer who actually co-founded Bridgeline with me and put together a proof of concept. And it was kind of right place, right time because it was in March or February of 2023. We were still working our full-time jobs, but everyone wanted to talk about it. Like how is AI going to impact my business, blah, blah, blah. And I had a large contact book within the industry. So did my co-founder, not in the industry, but just kind of had a large contact book for like AI support and also development support. We were able to move relatively quickly. So yeah, that's kind of how it got off the ground. Not a single person wanted to buy that product, but it was kind of how we got going. And a couple things led to another, and we definitely evolved after that. But that's definitely the inflection point.
In the first 6 months from that idea to the prototype and customer, what were things that didn't go as per your initial plan?
Yeah, so I thought it was going to move a lot faster, right? So we had this proof of concept. I thought for sure, and this is like definitely a naive first time founder, that this was going to sell like hotcakes and we'd be able to do this, replicate it, scale it. And so really what we learned in like quickly, like I said earlier, was that no one wanted to buy it, but everyone wanted to talk to us. So that actually led to essentially months, what actually turned in from 6 months really turned into a year of just straight customer discovery, of going into people and saying, hey, this is what we have. And they said, well, we don't want that. We actually want this. And it ended up like letting us kind of develop our thesis at Bridgeline, which was really cool, but it was felt painfully slow. Looking back on it, I don't think that you can start a business, especially a B2B technology company, without that type of tacit understanding of the market and what people are actually looking for and like what the true pain points are. So we turned in from a solution looking for a problem to understanding the problem. Now we need to go build a solution. And that's tough as someone that wants to move really quick, especially with a full-time job and being like, hey, I really just want to quit and go at this. So that's, yeah, that was kind of how the first 6 months to almost a year looked, really.
Got it. And looking back, what's your proudest moment?
Man, that's a good question. So hopefully my proudest moment is sometime in the future, right? Because we still have a really, really long way to go. I would say my proudest moment was when we released our first product and sold it and got the contract signed. But now I will say, and I hope that any like early stage founders that are listening to this, we churned that customer out, I think within 2 months. The product was absolutely like not ready for the big show, but that was definitely, it was proud in the sense of like, okay, we built something that from scratch that hasn't really been built before, and we got someone to pay for it. And it was very validating from a market perspective too. So like outside of just like being proud of that accomplishment, we're saying, okay, now the market's de-risked a little bit because we know that there is at least one person out there that's willing to separate with their money to solve this workflow issue, right? So it kind of helped us when we said, yeah, it kind of helped us just be like, okay, no, we need to just refine and make this better because the market's huge and we can go from there. So it was a case study of one, but the market, it really kind of opened up the market signal. And I think that was when I think back on things, that was definitely one of the things that was like the most exciting in the early days.
And for Bridgeline, who would be the ideal customers? At what stage of the project they should
Yeah.
consider about using Bridgeline?
Yeah. So what Bridgeline does, and just for clarity for anyone who doesn't know that's listening here, what we do is we're a pre-construction platform where we automate the bid leveling process and trickle into the estimating process a little bit. So by automating the bid leveling process, what I mean by that is we automate that data transfer from your subcontractor and vendor proposals to your leveling sheet. So we're not calling subcontractors, we're not calling trade partners and doing the nuance portion of bid leveling. We have a web application where it's drag and drop and data extraction is done automatically. The information can come in any format. So they call that unstructured data. So whether a proposal comes in Word, Excel, a PDF, handwritten on a napkin, we can take that information and we can extract it and compare them all against each other. So like on a high level, that's what we do. Then kind of carry costs and move them into like a high level estimate. But in terms of like an ideal customer profile, which is another thing, it took us a really long time to understand like who needs us the most. We found firms that have 5 or less estimators that are bidding more than 5 jobs a month. So their estimators are overworked. They're handling a lot of paperwork. They're doing a lot of data transfer from point A to point B. Their ownership groups want to grow the business, but they view pre-construction as risky because it's non-billable hours. So they don't want to hire more estimators. So they essentially will overwork their current estimating team. So they have risk of churn with their people, and then also where like, there's so much going on where there might be some mistakes that happen in the estimating process where we're able to come in and to say, hey, we can de-risk this a little bit by making sure we get this thorough review put in front of you. So you're not spending 20 hours trying to find any gotcha moments, and it's kind of right in front of you called out on the scope gaps. All that to be said, our ICP is at the moment 5 or less customers, 5 or more jobs that they're bidding a month, and not really massive organizations. So like 2 or 3 offices at the most is kind of who we can come in, and it makes immediate sense from an ROI perspective. That being said, we have customers that are outside of that are bigger and smaller. It's just kind of when we talk about like really quick sales and turnaround and like we can press a pressure relief valve in that organization, that's kind of who we're targeting and looking at.
We often hear construction is a very relationship driven business. So in order to find initial customer, like you build upon the past relationship, but it can scale to a point. How does, as a founder, you're thinking about scaling to new customers, like different channels of customer acquisition, and how are you navigating this phase?
Yeah. I mean, so I think that I agree. I think it's very relationship driven. I also think that construction professionals and construction companies at this moment are very interested in technology. And I think for the first time, and I think the why now, and anyone that's listening or thinking about starting a construction tech company, the why now makes a lot of sense with modern AI tools. For example, I mean, like large language models are really gonna be able to kind of transform how we work in general. So I think that these executives and some of these people that are really making purchasing decisions see that, and they understand that one, their businesses are going to change, be able to do more with less, reduce risk, et cetera. So all that to be said, it is relationship driven, but I also think that there is a moment right now where if you don't have a large Rolodex, you can still go in and kind of make an impact. I know that was kind of a twofold question of kind of how we scale out. I mean, I think that in the how Bridgeline set up and kind of what our process is we say, okay, there's a lot of construction tech companies that just serve general contractors. And as a subcontractor that sold equipment into GCs, when I was asked to use the GC's tech stack, whether it was like their estimating system or anything, I never really received any value out of it, right? Outside of just having an opportunity to pursue the job. So we want to create like value propositions downstream to trade partners and also upstream to ownership groups and architects. And that's kind of like how we view building out like a network effect and defensibility. Because while it is incredibly easy to start a technology company, it's also incredibly easy to replicate what people are doing now. I don't believe in technical moats. You have to win through a different power structure, right? So we're definitely looking to provide value downstream to subcontractors. That's going to be kind of our next little feature that we're bringing out.
Interesting take. In uh, like then what are some other construction tech startups which you think have done exceptionally well and you could borrow some ideas from their playbook?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of awesome construction tech companies that had some great exits, and also have just built really great products. I mean, I think there's also some really great people in the industry as well that have done it really well. So Dustin, who built and sold Building Connected, I think that's one of the best success stories in the construction tech world. Now started Edify, which is a great kind of cloud-based estimating system. I think what the guys at Toggle are doing is absolutely fantastic. So I would say, like, for me personally, it was like finding those startups where like one, I kind of see their founders and I like how they build, I like how they think, I like how they do things. And then also I like how like founders that are similar to them have like what they've done with with their companies, right? So what I think is great for Bridgeline based on kind of my observing the market might be different for somebody else because there's bunch of companies that have had success. So I would say like my biggest piece of advice is really kind of understand the startup ecosystem in construction tech and kind of pick the founders that you really align with, and then also like products that you really like, and the rest kind of will go from there.
What are some pre-construction or estimators related conference or events where one can most likely hang out with the ICP?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I would just really kind of, so we're right now helping estimators. Like that's what we do. We're helping estimators. So for us, it's like, okay, let's find estimating associations. So we linked up with the National Association of Professional Estimators and like went to one of their trade shows. And we were only talking with people that could potentially be using or buying our product. And it was incredibly distilled and great. And we got a lot of feedback. We got a lot of interest and a lot of deal flow out of it. If I was just starting out and I didn't have a product, I'd be doing the same thing, going and learning and talking to people. But every subset of construction, they have their own little committees and things that they do, and they all love to talk about it, and they're very inclusive for the most part, from what I found. There's the bigger trade shows that you'll see, like from Autodesk and Procore and all of those things, which could be very valuable as well. And then one of the bigger ones for us that's like a step below the massive ones is Advancing Pre-Construction, which is a great trade show. It's going to have like a little bit more than just kind of very still interactions, but you can get a little bit more diversity of thought in there. So I would just kind of keep your eyes out. Yeah, but there's definitely something for everybody, and they're always kind of having events.
Got it. And I recall the first time we chatted, you mentioned about cold calling. So if I were to ask you a masterclass or a few important guidelines of cracking cold calling in construction, what would that advice be?
Yeah, so we cold call, like we hit the phones pretty hard at Bridgeline. There's three of us that do it, and I'm one of them. I mean, like the biggest piece of advice is do it. I think that a lot of people just don't because it's incredibly painful. It's embarrassing. It can be embarrassing. Get people that get angry that you call them when, especially at the early stage when validating a product, especially a product that's hard for people to wrap their mind around. You need to be calling into people that you don't know because that's how you're going to get like the best feedback. Right? So even if you're getting on demos with them, right? And they're interested. So that's really kind of how you validate the market is like when you have conversations with people that may have never heard about you before. They're not actively searching for a solution. They just never heard about you. Now, whether or not they get on a call is a whole nother story. We've had very good success at converting cold calls into demos and then into sales, which I think is like higher than industry average, and maybe not construction tech, but just startup averages just in general. But it's like kind of like nail the beginning of it, and then kind of, I guess my biggest piece of advice on cold calling is outside of just doing it is you have to remember that every step of the way with the cold calling, the only thing you want is for them to want to either be on the phone with you for another 10 seconds or schedule a demo. You're not closing any sales, right? You just want them to not hang up on you, understand what you're doing, and then finally have them want to see it, right? So I think a lot of people think like they need to close business or be kind of they lose sight of what a cold call really is. A cold call is just like have the person want to talk to you again. And if you can kind of get into that mindset, it's almost like it's just relationship building. So it's not a fun thing to do, but it can be fruitful and very validating for your product, especially if you track pickup rates, conversion rates to demo, and then from demo conversion rates to sales. That's very powerful data if you as a founder do decide to do any sort of fundraising, something to have in your back pocket.
Do you have any regrets in terms of career, startup journey, anything you wish you would have done differently?
Regrets. I don't know. I think we've learned a lot. I don't regret anything. I think I look back and I say, okay, we could probably have moved faster, and we have moved incredibly fast if we did things differently. But the only way to do things differently is to know what you need to do, right? So it's like you have to learn these things. And the biggest thing is just like make sure you don't run out of money as you learn them. And I think that's like the biggest risk for some founders. So I would say like no. Would I have done things differently? Of course, like probably almost every single motion that we've done would have been done differently in some capacity. But I think that that's natural.
Let's do a rapid fire where you have only 5 to 10 seconds to answer and you have to keep it super brief. What's your favorite restaurant?
A chef special in Chicago.
Any book or movie which made a big impact in your life?
I love No Country for Old Men. I think it's the best movie ever made.
Your role model.
My dad,
A city which is in your travel bucket list.
Mexico City.
3 words your co-founder would describe you as.
Oh man, high energy. I guess that's 2 words. Okay. Annoying, persistent, and motivated.
I see. Your favorite music artist.
Right now, my favorite music artist, I would say, just like if I had to pick one from the rest of my life, Vampire Weekend.
I see. And your favorite movie?
No Country for Old Men.
Anything which we didn't cover in this interview and you'd like to end on that note?
I would say if you think of something, just go out there and do it and try it. If any founder kind of has just like a burning passion or like a desire to do something, that the risk really isn't, it's risky, but you'll never kick yourself for trying or betting on yourself. So yeah, go out there and do it. It's fun.
Just do it. That's a great note, and it was a very fun and insightful having you on the show, Dan.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited. I'm excited to listen to myself talk when it comes out, and yeah, and I'm also excited to keep in touch with you and kind of on your progress and ours as well. Hopefully, we'll be back on this one in a year and giving some good updates.
Amazing. Have a great rest of your day.
Yep, you too. Ciao.
Bye bye.